Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Fiddle with the buttons here. Beattie, John Beattie. Happy glorious 12th, July 12th, 2014. 25 years ago to the day, to this very day, 25 years ago, my now deceased wife Hazel, myself, and our 3 little children departed from the plane at Gatwick Airport for a 3-week visit, a memorable visit. I was, of course, hoping to hook up with John Tyndall, leader of the British National Party, he too, unfortunately, now deceased. All the wishes came true. During the course of the 3-week visit, yes, landing on July the 12th, I'm going to backtrack an inch or two. There was about 35 uniformed constables lined up as you come out the exit in the narrow, not a tunnel, but the narrow passageway to get out with our driver. And I thought, what the hell is this all about? Couldn't just be greeting Beattie Boy, but I'll always remember that. Anyway, 25 years ago, 25th anniversary of that memorable occasion. Without that trip, I wouldn't have met John Tyndall. And during the course of 3 weeks, he was kind enough to invite me to a gathering in Ashford, Kent, to protest the Channel. Then the bonus, he would be driving me. I just had to get to Hove, to his home in Hove, and I met his father-in-law, Mr. Parker, his mother-in-law, and his lovely wife Valerie, and their young girl. And the extra bonus was that Mr. Tyndall, John, drove me with himself, so we had great private conversations. From Hove all the way to Ashford, Kent, across the Downs. It was a trip I'll remember till the day I croak. It was just, you know, being alone with him where we could talk freely. It was fantastic. And then he gave me the honor of inviting me to share the stage as a speaker with himself to protest the Channel. I believe it was David Bruce was still alive then. I believe Mr. Peacock, I didn't really get to meet him. Richard Edmonds was at the sideline, standing as tall as he is, you couldn't miss him. And I have photographs of that meeting in a gymnasium. There was a constable at the back of the hall. Oh, terrific attendance. There must have been 150. And one of the cutest memories I have, too, is while I was doing my little yap, I was well received and treated with an Englishman's courtesy. While I was yapping, and then I couldn't help but notice in the pictures afterwards, John Tyndall was looking up at the ceiling above. Well, it wasn't the ceiling above. It was a helicopter above the gymnasium. So that was my intrigue into British politics, that was for sure. Although I did make an earlier trip. I'll get into that another time. So that's quite the memory for me. Now here we are 25 years later, Orange Day, Orangemen's Day, July 12th. It's a different ballgame now. We don't want our friends of the British People's League squabbling over religious issues, and they don't. Just as the genuine National Front in the motherland. Historic traditions are remembered, and thank God the violent part is on the downside. Historic traditions can be remembered. We certainly don't want squabbling and hatred within our own ranks. That's the most divisive thing there can be. But back at home, I have to tell you, this must have been an Orangeman Street that I live on, Newcastle Street. But when I purchased it 6 years ago, I noticed in the spring, the first spring, the lilies, the orange lilies, big cluster of them just in front of the house here. Can't miss it. And then there's the United Church across the street. Well, next door to it is the old Orange Hall, which has long ago been sold to private individuals, and they rent it out. And at the back, out the back, there's a big clump on my teeny backyard of orange lilies as well. So I've got the reminder of the traditions, that's for sure. But you know what helped give me a counterbalance? My one aunt married Catholic. My old grandfather used to mumble about that. But he was the greatest, an Irishman, and he was the greatest. Lundy was their names, and so what can I say? I'm just glad that the violence is on the downturn, that's for sure. And everyone's traditions must be respected within our ranks. So have a happy July the 12th. We've got so much to bundle in here. Some days I have nothing but 25 butts. I don't know what to say. Murrieta, California was a flashpoint just a few days ago against the forced busing of Mexican children into this little boon town in California where they were going to make it some kind of registration point. Well, the middle class finally got fed up when the sewage is oozing through your windows. And the middle class finally fed up. So they protested. Got the world news. But, the real dynamite. Who else was protesting? Blacks. Blacks with a few bucks above the norm of the Chicago ghetto or the Detroit ghettos or whatever. And these blacks were screaming on world television that there's not enough left over to share. What he didn't say, not enough left over white pie to share. The white pie is being gobbled up. There's not much left. But just think about that. The blacks starting to protest. Imagine if that grew nationally in America. Imagine. So the Dinosaur News here, brought to you by the British People's League today on July 12th, is proud to announce that that protest and the results have stopped the busing of Murrieta. Some of the blog shows, and I was saying I was disappointed that some of the blog show listeners weren't going down there to assist the middle class. You don't have to go now. The protest worked. Now this is the second major triumph for the people, not being American. I can't say we the people, especially July 12th with my British roots, whatever. But the other was the Bundy Ranch scenario. Remember that 2 months ago? The Federals were going to shoot the American ranchers. The American Patriot Militia showed up. It was a showdown, and the Feds backed off, not because they don't have the numbers to outnumber, but they're not stupid. It'll create a flashpan of patriotic gunfire that the American government's terrified of. So that was a couple of months ago, and now they backed down in Murrieta. They were talking about, it was all in the news just a day or two ago, going to federalize marshals and federalize local police and so on and blah, blah, blah. But they didn't do it. And I personally believe, I'm accused of having a vivid imagination, but I personally believe that it was seeing those blacks on television protesting the Mexican invasion. That scared the crap out of Obama. That scared the crap out of Jesse Jackson and all the rest of them. That the multicultural rainbow might explode. Well, in Mexico, they don't hesitate to use violence, do they? And they're bringing it into Southern California. It has been there for years, as the American white broadcaster Don Advo points out. American situation is now that Mexican gangs and black gangs in California are killing each other, literally. And they don't get along. They do not get along. The Koreans don't get along with blacks. Well, I guess whites don't either. We're at least, over the years, we're able to have some kind of discourse with them. Yeah, when needed. White man can make use of whatever he has at hand, can't he? We're not angels. We were in power. We're going to stay in power one way or another. We're going to reclaim our power. But this is a fatal flaw in the multi-cult program. Mexicans and blacks hating each other with a passion. And both being extremely emotional. They don't hesitate to shoot to kill. But that black on international news in Murrieta screaming, and a black woman screaming, there's not enough to go for everybody. We feel sorry for you, but what about us? What about us? Yeah, like we were here first to get the white pie. White cream coconut pie. I'm really grinning because I don't like talking about American politics because I never saw any hope. I never saw anything positive happening until the Bundy Ranch. That was the start. That Bundy Ranch standoff reminds me of Lech Wałęsa, the miners' gates in Poland. That was really the beginning of destroying the Soviet Empire overall. It's always the way. A few people in history who stand up, like Laura Secord, when the Americans were cut off at the pass by our British Canadians with our loyal Indian allies. Laura Secord ran through the swamps to warn that she had overheard what was cooking with the Americans. Always the little people. It's unbelievable. But the blog talk radio shows state that, you know, over the years that finally the people will wake up and so on. Well, I believe they are starting to wake up, the white middle. Yes, there's proof of that in that little spot called Murrieta, California. But guess what? I'll bet there wasn't one person at the demonstrations ever belonged to a white patriot organization. There wasn't one person at the demonstrations had ever heard of the different white blog radio shows, small or big. Now, yes, American Patriot Militia were heading down after the fact, after the first couple of demonstrations. But what's going to happen, I've predicted for years, whatever it is, the American white right and the Canadian white and the British white, whatever we're missing. But there's going to become a tide of protest that'll just bypass us. Bypass us. I asked one fellow on one of the big blogs in the States, well, how many were going to go down to the Murrieta protest? Couldn't recommend one person. Not one person. Now, this one particular spot, which I admire, they've been on air for years, the biggest down there, they've got about 8,000 listeners. 8,000 listeners and not one volunteering to go down to Murrieta. Well, then what the hell good are the blog spots doing? Educating what? Educating who? Everyone can see, like the poster behind me. Immigration, open your eyes. That's all we need. I'm not knocking the good works of people who run these blog shows, the white blog shows. I guess I am in a way. I say I'm not, but am I? I'm more knocking the so-called listeners. 95% who are cowards. Yes, I'm calling you cowards. Mind you, I'm a bit of a coward myself. I'm hiding up here in the middle of the woods in cottage country. So you're hardly going to hop a bus to come and give Beattie a smack, are you? I don't think you'd have good luck getting past my vicious dogs anyway. But it's so much of a powerful development, I can't even put it all in a simple, coherent package. It's just dynamite. Those blacks did it. You won't hear that in the news. You heard it first here in Dinosaur News. That terror that would run through the black hierarchy with the black Congressional Congress and the states, the works. That the blacks are starting to scream about the Mexican invasion. I remember years ago, and I haven't repeated it, years and years ago I used to point out that within the multicultural mud bowl, there are so many different tribes and allegiances and so on that they can't get along. But I'd forgotten about it. I guess it was snowed over that they were getting along or whatever, even though black gangs and Mexican gangs are shooting each other in California. But when it came to multicultural protests, especially allowing the invasion of the Mexicans, there didn't seem to be a problem. But now it's hit people with houses, it's hit people with something to lose, and the buses were stopping right in their backyard to let all the invaders off the bus. Compliments of Mr. Obama. I'll tell you, if he was, well, they've got the constitutional protection down there that at least that's obeyed. You can't be the president more than 8 years, because he'd lose for sure if this black thing opens up big time to stop the Mexican invasion. Wow. Okay, I've got that covered. The backlash. They fear that backlash, that's for sure. Oh, yes. And I've gotten help for not preparing these shows enough, so I did a little bit of research today, and I'm glad I did. So on top of all this, now, yesterday's news, what a coincidence! The immigration bill in the States that everyone, even up here in Canada, was terrified of, because, I mean, they're going to pour north of our border, too, the invaders. All the amnesty talk and all this, all that, all this, all that. Well, guess what? The immigration bill has been stopped in its tracks. Isn't that amazing? Within a day or two of the myriad of protests against the invasion, the big bill in Congress has been stopped in its tracks with no chance of passage this year at least, etc. See what a bit of backlash can do? But you know what? The white bloggers can't take credit for it. The broadcasters can take credit. They volunteer their time and try and alert the public, the white public. But the listeners can take no credit at all. Where were you when Murrieta, California happened, the turning point? Where were you with the Bundy Ranch situation? The only patriot groups that seem to show up at these matters are those that call themselves militias. I didn't say malicious, did I? I said militias. So, this is quite the July the 12th to have that big, powerful bill being dropped from the agenda. That's incredible. So check it up yourself. Drudge Report is where I got it all from. So we got the joyous 12th for the happy Orangemen over in Britain and especially Northern Ireland. And then we've got these occasions in the United States. What have we got in Canada? Beattie can yap away. I'm running in the municipal council and I get emails praising me for doing so. Oh, it makes your name known. It gets people, it gives them focus, it gives them hope. It's baloney, but I'm doing it because people do seem to be cheered up. I'll never understand why. Something to rally around. No, the only thing to rally around would be political cells that are ready to protest as the people did in Murrieta, California. Political cells in place. Quite easy to do, as we reviewed over the last few months. You have a get together, you become a political cell. And get in touch here with our blind list you can become part of once we get to know you. BritishCanada@gmail.com. BritishCanada@gmail.com. A political cell legal, legal. But that doesn't mean you can't whip out and sniff out people that aren't with us in wanting to keep our British heritage, our British traditions. And yes, equally for the French in Quebec, their traditions, they were guaranteed their civil code, and that must be maintained. We've got a lot of French Canadians who are fed up with all the crap that's going on too. And Native Indians. I have many Native Indian friends throughout Ontario. In Britain, the best hope keeps going up and down like a yo-yo, but the National Front group in Britain. Of course, the National Front in France is doing wonders. They're going to put a stop to new mosques at the city level and so on all throughout France. So the National Front in Britain, they've got a lady there, Tess Mulhane. Lady Tess is just an angel, a grandmother who speaks up and down Britain for the National Front. So check out the genuine National Front. So that's the hope in Britain. But back to Canada, what, me sitting to run for a municipal post in the municipal elections. So imagine if I win, I'd do my job. I'd be looking after potholes and snow removals in the winter. Great. So then what happens to the British People's League? I don't have the volunteers sitting upstairs in the loft. I'll still stick with the British People's League. That's my first honor. But I'll have to be half of my time with the city council. So where's the sense in that? You can't bring national issues into a city council. It's community level. And I love the people in this community because it's still white, bright, and beautiful, far enough out of the city. So anyway, we've covered that too. Yes, I'm feeling a bit better today. Okay, run out of time. Until next time, yours truly, John Beattie. Bye for now.